Housekeepers who worked in casinos/hotels, what's the weirdest thing you walked into? I worked as a concierge for an upscale hotel, so, naturally, because there wasn't a line for my desk, I fielded complaints regularly. One day a woman, very nice and patient, which is rare, calmly explained to me that her 5-year-old opened the door to their bathroom and there was a housekeeper pooping in there. The housekeeper and the boy screamed so loudly that I had already gotten noise complaints from the adjacent rooms. Needless to say, that family got a free night and an upgrade. I worked for a hotel chain in Colorado, and one day my co-worker and I went to strip a bed and the bed was full of oranges. The dresser oranges. Side table, cans of mandarin oranges. Not exactly shocking or disgusting, but it was weird. Oh, I got one. I was a night auditor though. This one starts out benign enough. My NA shift starts, and I have a small line. It's Saturday and we're near a couple of casinos, not unusual. A very polite man checks in and rents a top level suite for him and his wife. I get him in and start checking in the next couple. Being distracted, I barely noticed the previous couple come back in, only that the wife was partially obscured by the luggage cart and I remember thinking to myself, that's an ugly woman. The night is quiet and I leave. I come in the next night to hear what unfolded after I left. The couple never came back down to check out and have not been seen since. When housekeeping entered the room they immediately alert the FDM. Every surface of the room is covered in lube. The bed, the couch, the jacuzzi, even the mini fridge is covered in bottles and bottles of lube and baby oil. We know for sure it's lube because a dozen bottles are left in the tub. But wait, there's more. In addition to the lube, there is a rather large horse dildo left behind with thick black scuff marks and cracked down the center. My FDM, in her infinite wisdom, decides that they must have been junkies and this dildo is where they are hiding their needles. She decides to pick it up, to open it for safety reasons, but when she does, all that falls out is a rather impressive motor that has been burned out. The icing on this cake comes when they review the security tape. The wife is clearly a man in a wig. It's a big burly dude wearing a cheap wig. Hotel worker. Had an American guy come into our hotel, meant to be staying for 3 days. Went into his room and never left the room in over 2 weeks. He kept phoning down to extend his stay. The strange thing was, he had the same routine every day. Around 8 AM, he would order 8 bottles of beer and 20 cigarettes to be sent up to his room. He'd sign the check off to his room for the beers, but had to pay cash for the cigarettes as they came from the hotel shop, which wasn't owned by the hotel, therefore wasn't able to charge to the room. The cigarettes came to around £11, and he would always give us a £20 note and told us to keep the change. Lunchtime rolls around, and again, 8 bottles of beer and 20 cigarettes. Come dinner time, again, another 8 beers, but 40 cigarettes this time, assuming to keep a stock of when the shop closed at night time. This happened every day he was staying with us. No one ever saw him leave the hotel, so assumed he had a stack of £20 notes to pay for his cigarettes. He also instructed housekeeping not to clean his room. When he eventually left, the maid was greeted with hundreds of empty beer bottles. The bin was half full with cigarette ends and ash, and the room was left remarkably clean, albeit smelling awful. We tried to research the guy, but could only find he was part of an American broadcasting company. It was a long time ago and can't remember, so assumed he was over here to lie low. He checked out, paid off his bill, didn't even bother to check the bill, into a taxi, and never to be seen again. I walked in on a couple sleeping on the bathroom floor of a hotel room in the hotel I work for. The bed was untouched and everything was normal with that one exception. Not a housekeeper, but I was a bartender at a Marriott hotel years ago. Along with regular bartending duties, I also delivered bar orders as part of room service. One night I received a typical order, wine and beer, from a room that called down to the bar. I brought the drinks to the room and was greeted by an early 50s man wearing a white robe. He greeted me and asked me to place the drinks on a dresser fairly close to the door. As I went to place the drinks down, I noticed the bed had between 10 to 13 dildos laid out neatly along the foot of the bed. The sizes ranged from normal to horse. They were evenly spaced and all facing towards the headboard. While he was signing I made my way to the door, and as soon as he handed me the book I smiled and said thank you, have a great night. He just smiled, and that was it. 0% acknowledgement on his end. I stayed at a hotel that hosted a Magic the Gathering tournament, was visiting Atlantic City, only realized what it was as I played Magic a decade ago. In the morning as I was leaving, a housekeeper had a room opening and cleaning. He stops me and says, "WTF is this? Is it worth money?" I look in and someone has filled the bathtub nearly to the brim with lands/commons. So as someone who might have dabbled in Magic the Gathering, lands and commons are basically worth the ink and paper they're printed on, and most serious players have hundreds, if not thousands, of these cards just lying around. Worked housekeeping for a few weeks. Guess the weirdest thing was a 70-year-old couple left their room, so I went to clean it. Big bottle of Kai and a dildo so big even Ron Jeremy would have been jealous was left out on the bed. We had a hotel room one time and checked in around 3 to 4. Can't remember what hotel it was. When we walked in, one of the housekeepers was asleep in the chair, apparently had taken a rest and checked out for who knows how long. We woke her up when we came in the room. She was very apologetic and took her cart and stuff with her right away. We never said anything to the staff or saw her again. The room was all clean and set up, so nothing to complain about. I worked in a casino where I watched a middle-aged man literally shake a solid turd down his pant leg, sit back down, and continued on his machine. I turned around with backpack vacuum on and went to my lunch break. I didn't get paid enough to pick up strangers' trouser turds. This couple made a hasty retreat from a 5-star hotel I was working for. They left an entire brick of cocaine on the bathroom counter. This is related, but not exactly the question. When my wife and I were looking at wedding venues, one we went to was a hotel. The event manager wanted to take us up and show us the honeymoon suite. She opened the door, and there were 2 old men, like 60s 70s, shirtless, drinking vodka in the room. She was so extremely embarrassed and apologetic. She was very sweet too, but you could tell she was so mad at whoever screwed that up for her. We didn't choose the place, wasn't why, but I hadn't thought about that in a while, and figured someone else may get a kick out of it. In the late 90s I had a roommate who managed a hotel in Manhattan. He came home one night and told me they found a 3-foot nitrous tank in one of the rooms. They disposed of it personally. These days they would probably call the bomb squad. I was a housekeeper at a dive of a hotel in Chico, California in the late 90s. A week or so before, a local homeless woman had stuck her arm in a tiger's cage, a circus that was traveling through town, and got mauled. That weekend I was cleaning rooms and knocked on the door of a room paid for by a local charity organization. It turned out the guest was in the middle of sexy time. Quickly realizing it wasn't a good time to clean the room, I said I would come back later. To my dismay, the woman opened the door and asked me to join her and her friend. I declined. She then reached out and grabbed me by the arm and tried to drag me in. Her arm was covered in bandages and lacerations. It was the woman who had been tiger mauled. I yanked my arm free and ran away. I'll never forget what her shredded, bandaged hand looked like. Not my story, but a friend was a maid at a cheap hotel in our university town. She has a bunch of gross and weird stories, but the most insane is when she came into work and found a full abandoned meth lab in the bathroom of one of the rooms. Her manager made her clean up a bunch of trash from the different ingredients and scrub chemical stains that must have been left by spills. Apparently the room smelled like a bad science experiment or just normal meth, and the management refused to get any police involved. I imagine they believed it would discourage their regular clientele. I believe she quit very soon after. I was an IT guy for a casino. Got a call that a guest couldn't get his device connected to the Wi-Fi, so I had to go up and give him a hand. Come to get his tablet connected. He's in the room. Older guy, 60 plus, wearing a pair of gold booty shorts. He's got 3 girls. IDs meant they had to be 21, but they weren't much more than that. In there with him. Thongs and fuzzy high-heeled slippers. Topless, shameless. They want to connect the iPad so he can play some video to go along with the game they're playing. Couple bags of toys and tubes of stuff scattered all around the room. Two of the girls were getting impatient and already playing with each other by the time I got there. I've got my own kinks, so who am I to judge? Got his stuff connected and they were able to get his movie and got it playing on the TV in the room. He tipped me a small baggie of Molly and a couple $100, all in 50s. I took the money and let him keep the drugs. Find out later, he was a VIP card member and typically dropped 20 grand or so on the tables. Had a teacher who was the manager of Marriott in Germany for a while. She has wild stories. Once found an anaconda in the bathroom, wrapped around the shower curtain pole. Pulled naked devil worshippers out of the pool at 3 AM when the pool closed and they refused to get out. They weren't even guests. Saw the janitor with a wheelbarrow, a hose, and a shovel. He went somewhere, went to lunch and came back. After his lunch she followed him and asked what was up. He didn't speak good German and just said, "Cleaning up African lady a leg." Turned out some lady had jumped from the top floor of one side of the building. Hotel was kind of like an L shape, one side higher than the other, hit the emergency ladder on the way down, and had her leg torn off before becoming mush on the roof of the other side of the building. He had shoveled most of her into the wheelbarrow at this point, was just working on getting her leg unstuck from the ladder. Oof. I think we'll end it here. Take care of each other in the comments and do all the YouTube stuff.